Welcome to the Adventure Mechanics. I'm Chandler,
I'm Devin.
And I'm Tom.
and today we'll be revisiting Subnautica because we couldn't
Yay!
say enough about it.
No.
Yes, it's a problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's
I-
yes, it's so good.
I think we're fans, including, the guy who played it for just the show, and that's it.
Not naming any names.
Yeah,
That
no
guy.
names. No names. Just that guy. Just that guy. So, yeah, when we left off last time, you wanted to talk about something specifically, right, Devin?
I did. And I just would like to get your thoughts on this because I think about it a lot in terms of exploration and survival games. And I kind of got this idea from Folding Ideas. It's a channel run by Dan Olson, and he did a video about colonialism in Minecraft and about how exploration survival games kind of have the mechanics and the basis in what you do in the game tends to align with colonial ideologies of conquering spaces and civilizing them and whatnot. And depending on the game, you can get as, far in one direction or the other as you possibly can. And Subnautica is a exploration survival game. And it does have a building mechanic where you build a base and things, and you go off and collect stuff and all the kind of things that you get in that sort of game. But it's sort of, a bit narratively, but also mechanically, seems to be pushing against that typical go out and conquer, people the lands with people like you, push back nature. Like, it seems to be more of a, you're there to survive narratively, so, you need to do what you need to do to be able to do that. But it seems to push you in a way to align with nature more than go against it. But at the same time, when you leave at the end, you leave all of your stuff behind. And the Aurora crashed, of course, and a lot of other ships crashed and, polluted this planet. And then, of course, you have the precursors who came before and had their own sort of imperialist
Colonialism?
question mark. Yeah, their own, imperialist quote question mark agenda with setting up bases there and basically just rifling and pillaging nature to try and find a solution to their problem and leaving all their shit around after they're long gone as well, including the Sea Emperor Leviathan, who's just trapped for upwards of 1,000 years in this containment. And
So nice of them.
yeah, there's a lot of ideas just floating around there, and I wanted to know what your guys' take on that was.
Okay, well, first of all, spoilers, damn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've gotten to part 2 of the Subnautica talking, I mean, you should know.
You got nobody to blame but yourself.
Yeah.
Well, either part 2 or part 2.5 or
Whatever part
whatever.
we're on.
3.
Yeah, we've been,
Whatever we end up doing with this in the end.
yeah, we've been ranting about Subnautica for a while now. Yeah, I think the general consensus of the survival crafting genre is conquering the unknown and exploring the unknown to conquer said thing. And I could see a colonialism bent to it, especially the dude you referred to, because in his video essay he does talk about how in Minecraft he wanted to deal with the mechanics of the villagers, but he didn't want to travel to the villagers because he already set up a civilization of his own, so to speak.
Yeah, and it was the way the world was seeded, the way the world spawned together and stuff that made it inconvenient to travel all the way to the village.
Yeah, exactly. Which is common for a Minecraft seed, but I think that Subnautica takes a very different bent on it because you are never intended to stay there and conquer. Yes, you can go around and fuck with the world and basically treat it like a sandbox, but the narrative of the story isn't there to do that.
Mm-hmm.
More specifically,
True.
It's there to make you want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Kind of. I will say, as someone who progressed far enough through the game to, get to the part where you're getting into the more scary stuff, where you're getting a little deeper and things are getting a little bit more hectic. I started kind of getting to the point where I was just colonizing. I feel like it depends on how you play the game. Because for me, it was like, oh god, I'm terrified of doing the things that I'm going to need to do in order to leave the planet. So instead, I would rather enjoy screwing around with the tech tree and trying to get all the cool, toys unlocked and work on my base and maybe create a secondary base in another location, which makes things more convenient, and do all these other things. And it's almost like part of human nature almost is a little bit of colonization, and it's like our default. So it's what we're comfortable in.
Yeah, well, I would say that, yes, you explicitly did that because you were...
A scaredy cat, you can say it, yeah.
You want to do that, and that's kind of your jam. But you also specifically said, I know what I have to do to get off this planet, and I don't want to do that. That was a conscious thought that you had, not like in Minecraft where, oh, let's just burn down this villager town because fire.
Right.
Which I'm not proud to say that I've done, but I've done on multiple occasions.
Indeed.
So, yeah.
Been there for a couple of those occasions.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's in a digital world, so you can kind of justify your morals for that. But in Subnautica, it wasn't... I guess the focus wasn't enough on the crafting unknown for me.
Yeah.
It was more specifically the, for lack of a better way to describe it, but the handmade world that was more compelling to me because, well...
Oh, yeah.
I've been playing crafting survival games long enough that it has to have some other strange attractor to be interesting to me anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
But...
no, I think that's true. I guess it is kind of... I don't know. It is kind of interesting that there are so many games that are along that vein. For me, I think part of the fascinating part of it is like, there really is almost like this deep-seated, I don't know if it's genetic or what, but this part of human nature that wants to colonize. Otherwise, why would there be so many video games that are essentially just that? And
I'm going to stop
matter,
you. I'm going to stop you right here, and I'm going to challenge that a little bit.
Okay.
By challenging your statement that it's human nature generalization, because a lot of these games that have this sort of like colonizing mechanic, they're specifically coming from cultures that have a very strong colonial imperialist history.
Yeah, that's true.
That we take for granted. For example, going to obviously point the finger at the United States. That's a big one.
What?
England, another big one. Yeah. So
176 out of 192 nations.
And a lot of Europe as well. I mean, like, the West, quote unquote, like that
right.
Really strong. We're to the point where, we take for granted we're presented a game where there's just a world and you can just go do whatever in it. And yeah, I mean, that's a colonial fantasy, right? Like, we've arrived on the shores of a new world and, whoever was here before us be damned. It's ours now.
It's
no flag, no country. You can't have one.
That is true.
Right? So I just want to challenge that statement just a little bit to think about, the culture that these things come out of. Like, even if you're not specifically thinking, haha, I'm making a colonialism simulator. Like, I'm not saying anyone's doing
right.
that.
No, I don't think any of them are.
But, the culture, there are these ideas that we have in our culture that we just they're just there, and we tend to not look into them and, like, why it's like that. Why do we think we can go into a game that's just an open world and think we can do whatever? And then how do we react when we're presented with people who were there before us, like, the villagers in Minecraft, or the Sea Emperor Leviathan in Subnautica, a sentient sapient creature on this planet.
I don't think I wouldn't say that. Like, I guess when I say it's kind of built in, I feel like it's almost kind of like there is a part of, and maybe this is just my opinion, obviously, but like,
sure,
there's like a part of the human mind that does sort of enjoy that idea of just going in and conquering some place. I mean, frankly, it's why the human race has become so insanely prolific on this planet, and why we're like a freaking disease at this point. So, and that's not to say that we can't overcome that, but I feel like a lot of these games take advantage of that part of our brain, and I would make the argument that that little part of our brain is in everyone, and you can learn to overcome it and not be such a tremendous colonial dick.
And steal all that toilet paper. I'm kidding.
But right. But like, you know, video games in many ways are here to kind of like allow us to play out our fantasies, even our darker fantasies, in, you know, in a safe place where it's kind of okay. I mean, it's like the whole premise of like Grand Theft Auto, you know? It's like, I'm gonna go bang a hooker and kill her afterwards. Like, horrible, horrible, horrible shit, but like totally good, normal people participate in that game all the time.
Which is funny, because that game is just, oof. Yeah.
Oof. So problematic, but also I love it, so I can't say too much.
Right? Yeah.
But I mean, I think that this is like that, only the like for the colonial part of our brain, where it's and Subnautica is, I think, actually, it's actually kind of a beautiful like dichotomy of it, where it's like it allows you to kind of take that part of your brain and enjoy it, where you like come into this new planet and you're exploring and you're checking out all these cool things and you're building things and you're kind of conquering your environment in a way, because you're using your environment to survive and for resources and all of this stuff. But at the same time, it kind of takes in this more conscious side of it, where it's like, hey, I know you're having fun doing the whole colonialism thing, but like, by the way, there's this environment here and it's not yours, and you're actually kind of having some negative effects on it, and it like brings that to the forefront, where I think a lot of the other games, Minecraft for instance, is like, hey, there's some really dumb villagers, you can just like do whatever you want with those, and
Abduct
this whole
them
world
in
is
a
here.
boat.
Yeah, exactly. This whole world is just your playground, do whatever you want, there's no consequences.
Even the sun and moon revolve around that planet in Minecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
true.
just had to point that out.
You're totally right. I feel like Subnautica is like hijacking that, where it's like, hey, you think that's what this is, but actually, we're going to get in here and mess with your head a little bit and make you think about this side of you and what you're doing, and, you know, look at your impact on the environment. And that's kind of cool. It's like a subtle way of like bringing that topic up, which I think is cool.
Yeah, and
So,
on top of that, it also fucks with you, right? Because, like,
Yeah.
at least in my playthrough, it was, oh, you're hiding from that Reaper Leviathan? Oh, what a shame that we put this terrifying cutscene in front of you at the same time.
oh, we're just going to have
thanks,
this horrifying ghost thing come in and make you think that you've been found.
Yeah. Yeah, who am I? I'm just somebody trying to hide from that thing trying to eat me. Go away.
Oh,
Throws
man.
mouse across the room.
No,
it
literally,
is-
I had to like pause it and like just take a breath and be like, that was the worst timing for that cutscene, and then move on with my life.
But I do think that the game is. I think you're totally onto something with that, Devin, in the regard that like it does have a colonial aspect, but it like turns it on its head, which is kind of what the whole game. It's like subversive a little bit.
Yeah. My take
So.
on it is, I don't know, like, I don't want to necessarily get into the philosophy of this, because I haven't, like, read enough lately to be able to answer it about, you know, kind of, like, what's in human nature. And I don't necessarily, I don't know, I'm kind of maybe an optimist that I want to say that maybe the drive to conquer isn't maybe necessarily the base of human nature. Like, it's something that obviously, you know, humanity generally has a very warlike history, so it's definitely there, but I think the base of it is more exploration, seeing what's unknown. Like, that's kind of how I, like, maybe my perhaps too romantic view of human history. I'm talking like way back, like, you know, way back, like, you know, humanity as we know it, it's starting, you know, kind of in Africa and then moving outwards. and exploring and finding new places to settle and, make lives and stuff. And I think that's kind of like the biggest driving force in the sort of exploration survival games. And where kind of this is my like literary analysis, I guess, of Subnautica, is that it's taking that, here's the exploration, go find new things, and that drive to do that. And of course it adds this survival mechanic on top of it to suit the narrative that you're stranded on an alien planet. Like you will die if you do not find a way to survive on this planet. Right. And it presents you with this other story, like on, you're surviving and your idea is to get home. Or not, I mean, depending on how you feel, but it's presenting this other narrative with the precursors, that they came here to study this, bacterium that they brought from somewhere else that was spreading across their empire, and it got out and it completely, wrecked the ecology of the planet, and they were ultimately stealing the children of sentient sapient creatures on this planet, were either unaware that they were sentient sapient or were willfully ignoring the fact that they were sentient sapient, in their project. So you're kind of presented with this, like, other side of the narrative, that other beings had come here, and they were maybe not going to be here permanently, but they were doing this thing, and, kind of, it just has that friction against, like, the come and conquer and settle, because you're seeing what conquerors came and did. And then you are, kind of not necessarily undoing their mistakes, but you are able to, do what they couldn't, or at least you're in a space where you would be willing to do what they couldn't, which is communicate with this other alien being and then help her out in a way that can also help the planet out. So, but then, of course, helps you out to leave.
So I think that's actually an interesting point on this with the Sea Emperor Leviathan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She does mention that she couldn't communicate with it, or with the precursors at one point.
She says that she tried, but they did not hear her. That's her dialogue. And there's a hint in one of the precursor bases that supposes that the precursors were speaking either half telepathically or they had a telepathic element to their language, the way they communicated.
Which is interesting, because the Sea Emperor Leviathan had that as well.
Yep. Which is why I say either the precursors, for whatever reason, didn't receive her signal, they actually could not understand her, or they willfully were ignoring her, that she was lesser, that she was not worth listening to.
Well, so I believe that the Sea Emperor Leviathan actually could communicate with them, but she chose not to because they were being colonialists about it, for lack of a better theming with this. Because
I don't know that the text bears that out, but go ahead, I'll look
it
up.
Yeah. The dialogue does hint at that fairly strongly, because in one conversation, or one dialogue dump that the Sea Emperor has, she says she couldn't communicate with them, but then, like, afterwards she says, I refused to give them what they wanted. And
I think she knew what they wanted. No. She just wouldn't give it.
Well, I'm going to find that dialogue, because I know what part you're talking about, but I want to find that specifically. Maybe the wiki.
Yeah, because I think she was just talking about the, what do you call it? Whatever, the solution, the cure. She knew about it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but, like,
they were able to communicate with her. They couldn't hear.
Here's what she says. She says, so here's the full dialogue for this section. So she says when you show up, she says, "Are you here to play? Others came here once. They built these walls. They played alone. They bored me. Now they're gone, and instead we have you. We are curious whether you swim with the current or fight against it as they did. My young want to hatch, to play outside this place. We have been here so long. The others built a passage to reach the world outside. I asked them for this freedom, but they could not hear me. If you help us, I will give you freely what the others tried in vain to take."
So, in the way I personally interpreted that was, at first she was not able to fully communicate with them, but she got the gist of what they wanted, and she actively refused because they, quote, swam against the current, whatever that means in her context.
I think that's a reference to like a colonialism sort of thing. I think you might be onto something with that.
Yeah. And the way that it came across to me anyway was, oh, you couldn't talk to him at first, you got bored with him, and then when you finally got to a line of communication, you didn't want to help them because they were being giant douche canoes. That's fine.
I disagree with half of that. I think that they willfully didn't hear her. That's my read on, that's my interpretation on this dialogue, is that she tried to communicate with them and then they weren't hearing her. And my interpretation of that and what we know of the precursors is they didn't want to hear her. They wanted to take what they wanted. They didn't want to work with her, either out of desperation because their race was dying or just because of their mentality as being better than others, other creatures being a higher order of being. So I definitely like I will give you freely what the others tried in vain to take. Like, she didn't help them out. But, I mean, they also weren't listening. They didn't want to listen, is my interpretation on that.
I think they left it intentionally vague to make it, more interesting. I think either one of you could be right.
Definitely. And this is the fun of literary analysis.
Yeah.
And talking about it.
So I kind of see where you're coming from on that one, but I guess that my interpretation of it was more so, okay, they tried communicating before they captured her and put her in the tank, and once she was stuck in the tank, she's like, no, I'm just not going to talk to you guys anymore, even if they were still trying to communicate at that point, like, for whatever reason. And maybe there's some more information about that you can find in the artifacts strewn around the secret lab, but honestly, I didn't go through most of those artifact analyses for my playthrough, but if they're there, that would be an interesting little addition to it, because the precursors don't really come across as strictly colonialists, because they do have the artifacts from Earth in their collection. And if they were true colonialists, I mean, these dumb apes have this resource-rich planet. Why don't we take it from them? And maybe the concept of the Kara virus kind of just killed everything and forced them into a colonialist mindset. But they weren't necessarily colonialists. They were more so tourists, at least when they came to first contact with humanity.
Well, and that's why I kind of was drawing a distinction with them as like being imperialists. They're when they talk about the Kara virus going to the other core worlds, like, they have a vast empire, clearly. And if and it seems kind of weird that they would be one race that originated on bunches of different worlds. So they were settling other worlds. Just because they didn't settle on Earth, or they were more tourist-like, where they came and took artifacts or experimented or, took people away. We don't know that they didn't do that. I don't think that means that they're not colonialist, imperialist kind of race.
I could agree with you to a certain extent on that one, but just the way they have the artifacts on display is almost as a intentionally way to muddy the waters.
Yeah, but also think about England. Think about the British Empire when they went to other places and they brought back artifacts from Africa and India and displayed them in their museums.
Whole piles of wood-corded corpses.
Yeah.
I'm talking about mummies. For those who don't know. Yeah, that's kind of
that was my read on their museum with their artifacts, is that they had gone to these places, and whether or not they had stayed there, they were taking things away and then displaying them with pride. Like, they may have considered Earth one of their planets, even though they hadn't set up a colony there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's just me kind of guessing and reading off of what we have. That's, just another kind of analysis headcanon thing.
But I can see where you're coming with that.
But that was my read on their artifacts. Besides being kind of a cool, the precursors went to Earth, they knew about humanity because they have a Mongolian sword. Which brings up another question that we can touch on later. Why Mongolians?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about that myself.
Because it was Mongolian artifacts. The Degassi was a Mongolian ship. The word Kara for the Kara bacterium is a Mongolian word.
Oh.
You know what that really means? It means the person who was doing the story and lore had a real hard-on for the Mongolian thing.
I mean, very, very probably, but I just wonder about that. Like, why Mongolia? I mean, that's an interesting choice to make.
It is.
So just to circle back on
Sure, yeah.
the museum concept, if you were making a museum, why would you put it in a research facility when you have all of these other facilities around this crater, to say nothing of the rest of the world? Why would you put your sacred artifacts to present into a research facility?
Well,
That's
maybe
really
you were
simple.
living there. Maybe when you left your home world, you brought all your cool shit with you, and you just had to put it somewhere.
Maybe you just really
I
want
mean,
to
why do
impress all
people
the
bring
visitors,
anything?
and you just want them to know how cool you are.
Yeah,
Dude, look
I
at
mean,
this sword. It's like the
I mean-
most awesome sword.
it's the coolest sword. I mean, granted, like, there is like a level of like, that ludonarrative thing where it's like, oh, clearly this is just a, we can't really, like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. This is clearly just here for the player's
For us.
benefit. Like,
Yeah.
why would this be? I can come up with reasons, but, are they good reasons? I don't know. They're reasons.
I mean,
well,
to be fair, yeah, if we're asking the same question, then we got to ask ourselves, why in the hell were all the rooms so enormous and basically empty?
Yeah.
That's because
There's just...
the Mongolian steppes were big and empty as well. Sorry, that was kind of a dig on the Mongolian theming. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that is perfectly valid. Like,
Yeah. Who knows? But
Like-
yeah.
Yeah.
the precursors aren't much larger than a human being from the way they set up everything.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, it's all built around human proportions, so they're probably kind of
Yeah.
vaguely humanoid.
They may have been rather tall, but otherwise,
yeah,
Right.
like even then, they were at most 10 feet tall if you go off of any of their open doorways.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
they,
even then, they might build their things huge because of, cultural ideas of, superiority and grandeur and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah, they might drive big trucks, too.
They might.
rolling coal.
Look at my big truck, and look at my really cool sword from this other planet I've been to.
I went
so
to this
cool.
planet. There were very strange creatures there. They were evolved from monkeys, and they made swords. Isn't it interesting? It's got a horse on the end. You know what a horse is? No, I didn't think so. You've never been to Earth.
Oh, man, the hipsters of the fucking precursors had to be unbearable.
Oh, yeah. No
Sorry,
kidding.
that's wholly inappropriate. But yeah, I don't know. I think it is an interesting way to view the precursors in terms of how or why they would do something. Because if you're really desperate for finding a solution to this bacterial infection thing,
Yeah.
why would you spend so much time and effort building something so large and grandiose, let alone
Yeah.
multiples of them?
Well, maybe though, because you have your little builder tool, and it only takes a couple seconds to build something if you have the materials for it. Maybe
Yeah,
they had a
that's true.
similar technology. So it really wasn't an effort and time thing. They just went, and I have willed it into being, and here it is.
Yeah, that's true. If you have resources like that, it kind of doesn't really matter.
I mean,
does
because
it?
they can put their consciousnesses, they can download their consciousnesses and save them. That's a thing that precursors can do. So they had kind of this weird telepathic thing, and like all of like the floaty elevator stuff and the force field doors and all of this other stuff that they could do. It seems really weird that they wouldn't be able to use something similar to your little base builder tool. What is that? The habitat builder.
Yeah.
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 The building
right.
gun.
The building gun. Yeah, this gun doesn't kill, it builds things. Oh.
Behold, I point it and now there's a pot. I can plant a plant in it.
That is the most American thing to ever American. Yeah.
Boy, that sure would be cool, though. Just be like, I want a new car. Zap.
Bzzzt.
All right,
Yep.
I'm going to take it to work now.
I mean,
Yep.
okay, so playing devil's advocate here, the
Sure.
closest analog in real life that we have is 3D printing, right?
Right.
Or the closest analog that's a fad or a trend. And even in the world of 3D printing, most of the applications that you see that aren't research projects, like building an entire house in 48 hours out of concrete laid layer by layer, it's mostly for a production sort of thing. And yeah, production can happen in this world. We see it even in the precursors' own areas where they build the ion cubes, right? Because there is
The
a
warpers,
ion,
yeah.
the ion fabricators. And who knows, maybe all these large open rooms are necessary for collecting something in them. But we don't know that because there's no evidence of that one way or another. But even if you did have the ability to just point the proverbial gun at something and make a pot, if you're in a mindset of, oh shit, like half of my species population is dying, but I really think I should spend like the extra 20 minutes to build this thing really grandiose and get it just right.
Okay. Oh, this is a good segue to the other thing I want to talk about, which is Carabacteria anyway, but this is a perfect segue, and I'll tell you why. Because you're assuming that these are reasonable, rational, logical beings.
That's true.
And as we can see today, which...
Those don't exist.
At the time of recording, we have this whole coronavirus pandemic going on. And we see a lot of people just, being Nero, let's just watch the world burn. So you're making an assumption about the precursors that even though, half of their civilization is being wiped out by a pandemic, what's bigger than a pandemic? Do we have a word for that would span galaxies? A really, really pandemic. You're assuming that they would suddenly change, like they would suddenly, like all, like as a group, like not just meaning individuals, that a lot of these beings would suddenly be like, okay, we've got to be super efficient and stuff.
But,
when that's not, it's clearly not their cultural idiom to be like small, build compact, be efficient. They're still like creating these huge things as we see in the game. So you're kind of making an assumption about how they would react to this that, I don't think that that's bared up even if you compare it with like real life. Like, it's like, well, we need to do a thing. And sure, some places are going to be like, yeah, okay, let's just throw some walls together, put a roof on it, and let's just go. And start working. Where others are going to be like, nah, we're like the coolest, man. Like, we still want to build things that look like our best stuff for whatever reason.
I have an interesting thought on this. All the little pieces from other worlds that you come across? Mm-hmm. What if that is a reminder to them about the stakes of solving this problem?
That's an interesting idea.
That is an interesting idea. I want to get back to that, but I do want to push back on your assertion that there's the assumption of building compact. This wouldn't be like all of America watching the world burn. This would be like the CDC watching the world burn. Because it's not... This planet wasn't anything more than a research station. At least from the few logs that I read, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
even like if we take it to a real world analog of like the best we have is putting a research station on Antarctica. That would be a rough dialogue, right? Or analog, rather.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily put the people on our research stations that are like, yeah, fuck it, let's watch the world burn. We're here to investigate this, but fuck it, we got time, right? We don't necessarily do that. And them being a species that can span planets, they probably would, at the very least, have that consideration in mind.
I don't know that they would, especially if they were a long-lived species.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean, we work on in like, you know, chunks of like 100 years. You know, that's like a lifespan for a human person. So humans we're kind of like, okay, we need to get on this right now and do things really quickly. And so we tend to look at time in chunks relative to what's slow or quick for the way that we kind of are. But I feel like there was something in here that kind of implied, in Subnautica, that implied that the precursors were a longer-lived race, and that they might see time differently, and that so their sense of urgency wouldn't match up with ours.
You can kind of see that in the fact that like all of our structures are just completely falling apart when you come across them as they're abandoned. Mm-hmm. Where the precursor structures are like untouched.
Yeah, they were built to last, apparently. Also, I'm trying to remember, do either of you recall, I know that there's some vague hints at the timeline that around 1,000 years ago, that's when the coronavirus was discovered, and and it started to spread. But I can't recall, but I feel like there was some sort of like vague timeline thing, and that it took like 200 years before things got really bad, and the facilities like on this planet on 45466B, that I'm trying to remember which log that's in, or where that's implied. I feel like that was implied that it was like around 200 years before things got super bad, and then things went to pot.
So, from what little I remember, 1,000 years ago, they did get the coronavirus, and then in their desperation, they made it to planet 546B and set up a research station there to research it, and then they brought the virus to that planet for research purposes.
Yeah.
In terms of timelines of how long before it became a big deal, I don't really remember that off the top of my head.
I don't recall, and I'm not going to be able to find it, but I feel like I remember like hints at a timeline in some of the logs that kind of indicates like how long, like, and that it had been a long time that they'd been working on finding a cure for this, and that things didn't reach the super crisis point until, much later. As opposed to like, today where you could reach a huge crisis point really, really quickly.
Like a matter of a few months. Coronavirus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right?
Yeah.
So, from what little that I see from it, the only real implication that they have is this became a huge deal over time. I think it was a much more condensed timeline, because they say in one of their articles that they've your PDA magically translates. Got some thoughts on that. It just casually says 143 billion individuals over the course of the time since its discovery. And they don't really say much beyond that. And then it also, when you look at the coronavirus, it's like, oh yeah, the gestation time from infection to death is within 2 weeks. So if you like did the numbers on that, that means 143 billion people could die very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So
I have a question. Do either of you guys know if you ignore the virus as you're becoming infected, are there ever consequences, or does it just kind of hover?
It hovers. It's a game. So it
hovers.
That's fair. You will never technically die from the coronavirus.
I'm glad, but also almost a shame. It would have put a serious sense of urgency on it, but
I feel like that would be counter to what the point of the game was, though. which was the
Yeah.
thrill of exploring the unknown and the hazards of it, right?
Oh yeah.
If you
I
had
agree.
kind of, yeah.
if you had a fire under your ass, you would be like, okay, well, that's fascinating, but I ain't got time for that. I got to find this cure, which
Yeah,
would be an
and it's-
interesting tension.
But it does kind of give you that, like, it does kind of still give you a sense of urgency, though, because if you're scanning yourself, like, after you've become infected, it'll, give you little updates about, like, it's really bad.
It's
And so
Right.
if you're
getting
if you're
worse,
feeling
guys.
immersed in the story, you're gonna be like, oh god, like when am I gonna die? Or like especially when you're like getting the PDAs from the Degassi crew and stuff, and seeing like what they came across, and then like clearly they were all infected and they felt really stressed out about this. You see like you start seeing more and more creatures that are infected, and it's like, oh god,
That's
like this
true.
happening. You learn from one of your PDA scan things is you learn that like all of the life on this planet, it's like a lot of, it's like diversity, but it all comes from like a very narrow range of ancestor species, which implies that there was a huge die-off.
Yeah, like
You
a
know?
mass extinction event.
Yeah, it was like a mass extinction, like in like quote recent history, which as far as like geological time and like biological time, it's recent history.
About 1,000 years ago, plus or minus.
Yeah, I mean that's really not that long ago, as far as that sort of thing is concerned. And so you're just like, wait, what? So you start to feel like it's kind of like the the radiation leak from the Aurora as well, where it's just like, oh, by the way,
This is
yeah,
gonna
if it
kill
keeps
everything.
leaking, it's gonna literally like have devastating consequences on the ecology of this planet, and you're just like, oh no. So I think like even though there really is no real consequence to just doing whatever and letting Kara take its course, it still kind of makes that narrative tension.
Yeah.
Of you're sick and you are going to die. Everything that you're finding says that you're going to die. The precursors did not survive this,
Yeah.
Right.
possibly due to their arrogance, but they didn't survive it.
Yeah. But they also, I think that was enough for this particular game. Mm-hmm. Because
Yeah.
if you pushed it so there was a mechanical trigger for you to actually physically die if you didn't get it within a certain amount of time, that would make it a very, very different game. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they didn't want to go there.
No,
'Cause that's a-
yeah. They didn't want to rush you.
That's a much more
Good.
stressful game.
It would definitely make for an interesting game mode. Wouldn't even be that hard to implement.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Let's see what the mod community has to come up with.
Just giant fucking
Giant
monsters.
fucking creatures. Just really big peepers. The biggest peepers you've ever seen.
Look at
really?
those peepers. Yeah.
Look at them peepers.
That's it?
Oh, there's more, but
Well,
that's
I mean, there's
that's the
more,
most
but that's
notable
one of them.
Sorry, we went
yeah.
really in the weeds with that one.
This is a good talk, guys. Just
Good talk.
Just saying. I'm enjoying this. This is so much fun for me. I never get to talk about shit like this. It's awesome. I'm like, yes, let us discuss. Let us argue our points. It is amazing. So, I'm going to move us along a little bit. So, the Kara bacterium.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this plot line in today's world?
I was actually going to bring this up if you didn't, so I'm so
Okay.
glad you did. I'm like, is Subnautica about to have a resurgence? Because, like, holy cow, it was relevant then, but in, like, a hypothetical sort of thing, but now it's like, oh, hi. This is starting to feel a little personal.
Yeah.
Feel...
Okay, so do you want to talk about it first, Tom? Because I got a rather long-ish rant about it.
Oh, boy.
I mostly just think it's really interesting that we, just by sheer chance, decided to do this game at almost exactly the same time that coronavirus was beginning. Like,
Yeah.
not on purpose at all, but
Yep.
when we first started playing this game, which is long before the recording, which is long before any of this stuff is going to come out, coronavirus was a thing, but like not even in the news yet.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
something
It
new
was a
is
blip.
happening. And that's
Yeah.
all we
Right.
know.
It was a few isolated cases in China at the time.
It was
Hadn't been
not
reported
major
yet.
news.
It wasn't major
Yeah.
news.
No one was talking about it really, and yeah, as we've been doing this, that's become more and more and more relevant. And I thought it was interesting. I was just kind of like, that's interesting timing to choose this game. Next, we're going to have to do, what is that game? Pandemic, where you design I think it's Pandemic.
Oh, that's hit a huge
You design like a
resurgence
virus?
because of
Oh
that.
yeah, Pandemic's huge right now.
It's
Yeah, I love that game.
it's hilarious that we really as a society are like, okay, you know what? This isn't bearable. But what if I was playing as the virus?
Yeah,
I
what
make
if
that
I
work?
was the winner?
Yeah. Oh, man. It's true, though.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That's an incredibly funny way to cope with it.
But I definitely want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of first cop out and say that as a motivator for the player, it is actually incredibly weak. Simply because there are no mechanical side effects. You don't get hungry faster. You don't get thirsty faster. You don't run out of air faster. The further into the infection you get, there's nothing mechanical there. It's strictly there for flavor. And don't get me wrong.
True.
Like any good great. Like any good dish, seasoning is what makes or breaks it. And for Subnautica, the Kara virus is a very well done seasoning for the main course, which is the exploration cycle, right? It's not even a conquering cycle, it's an exploration cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, exploration.
But in terms of like the bacterium being a player motivator, for me, I found it incredibly weak. I didn't even really register that I had it until like I was like, oh, I can turn this thing off, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna stab you and say no. And I was like, oh, okay, this is where I'm going now. I gotcha. So I mean, it was for me, it was there, but it wasn't a main driver, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis for like, especially from a mechanics standpoint, because it doesn't really have any bearing mechanically on the game. It's just sort of there. It's more a story thing than a game thing.
Yeah. I do think it would be kind of cool if they had a little more of an impact. I kind of like that it isn't super intrusive, but it would be kind of fun to have, like, I don't know, some more stuff, like maybe your person occasionally coughs and hacks something
well, maybe
up or something.
Maybe it's like
Add
a
a little more
game,
flavor.
maybe like a game mode where your typical game, your typical survival game, it doesn't do anything, but maybe there's a game mode where there is infection mechanics, where maybe I don't, besides like the green lesions, it doesn't seem to be respiratory, but if it were respiratory, affecting your respiratory system, maybe like, you're diving and then all of a sudden your character starts coughing and your air goes away really quickly, and then you're like having to swim against coughing because you're going to die if you don't get where there's air. You know what I
That
mean?
would be scary. Oh
Like,
my god.
wouldn't that be terrifying? And like, it starts out like small, but then it gets increasingly worse on like some kind of timer. I don't know, but I'm just spitballing. But like, that could be an interesting, like, adding that pressure. I don't think that the game. I think it would just make the game too different if you had mechanics for that. As it is.
Yeah, you'd have to add it as an extra mode for people
Yeah.
that have played through the game and want to play it again, but with a little extra.
Yeah, but with like an
challenge.
extra challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that would actually actively make the game worse. Simply because of the kind of the core of the game is going into caves and whatnot and finding what is exciting about this, but also keeping an eye on your air supply. And as soon as you start fucking with the air supply levels, either good or bad, unintentionally, brain coral blowing air out. You don't really realize that until you accidentally hit one of those bubbles. That's a change for the mildly positive, right? It allows you to stay under longer. But if your character started like a mad hack coughing fit, and your air went from like, oh, I have 2 minutes of air left, I can get out in about 45 seconds, I'm good. And then you just had this coughing fit, and it's like, oh, you have 45 seconds left, and you have another coughing fit coming up. You just know it's going to happen. Like, that would make it actively stressful and kind of discourage the thrill of the unknown. But
Yeah.
as an additional mechanic, or as an additional like hard mode, quote unquote, that would actually kind of be interesting.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I meant. Is
Yeah.
I don't think it would work at all in the game as it is. Like, I would not like
No.
it. I would not play it. But as an extra mode, like to either try out or to give people who are like really experienced with it want an extra challenge, I think that could be interesting if you did it the right way. Because I think it would need some balancing. Because, like you said, if you're in a huge cave system and then all of a sudden you have this massive hacking cough, and you can't get out, like that, it's like I think you'd have to balance it where it would feel like that was fair.
Oh yeah, I
Game-wise,
suffocate
like, I
myself
mean,
enough
obviously-
as it is without that. So
Yeah, like as someone who consistently forgets how much oxygen there is until it's like 30 seconds remaining, and I'm like, oh shit.
yeah, but
Oh, no!
I don't even know where I am anymore. Oh no, this isn't going to be good.
Well,
Oh,
I'm
no,
gonna have
this
to
is
find
terrible.
this pile of stuff later.
Yeah, I didn't realize until watching the speed run that you could build multiple tanks to switch out.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
as,
you
as
totally
were
can
exploring. Yeah, I didn't
What?
realize you could do that until I watched the speed run of Subnautica, and I was like, wait a minute. So many deaths that could have been avoided.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I've played this game for years. What the fuck?
That is hilarious.
Surprise! Yeah,
Oh, that upsets me.
it's pretty
Oh,
great.
so many freaking times that I was lost and panicking because I didn't have enough freaking oxygen.
Yep.
And then I'd like barely make it back to my submersible at like literally lights going out levels.
I know,
of,
you're like
getting
blacking
close.
out as you fall into your sea moth.
And I get it, I'm like, oh my god. And then I'm like, I have to do it again, and I'm just gonna get lost again. I'll get like 5 feet deeper in, and then I'll be like, oh shit, I'm out of air. That would have been so useful.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I feel so stupid.
I never did it because I ended
It's so
up building
obvious.
Yeah, I never did it just because I found the sea moth before I really felt the need to. But yeah,
I totally still killed myself a lot with a sea moth. So
if you mean getting run over by a sea moth, yeah, I'm right there with you.
oh no, I suffocated a lot
That's fair.
because you still go into like wrecks and stuff and then get twisted around, and then you're like, well, I know the sea moth is like probably 20 feet from me right now, but I have no idea how to cross that 20 feet, so I'm still dead.
Yep. Yep. I actually didn't suffocate more than like twice, and one of them was because one of the leviathans destroyed my sea moth in the Lost River.
Oh no!
Yeah, that was a
Oh.
very sad death.
Oh no!
Because you
That's
couldn't
just
swim
like
to the surface fast enough, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was like almost to the lava lakes, and I was like, or
Oh boy.
the inactive volcano area, and I was like, well, hopefully this extra large tank I have helps. Yeah, I got halfway
Nope.
through the river before dying.
oh no.
Yeah, that was a bad time.
Yeah, that's one of those that's just okay. Oh, can I give my thought because that just
Sure.
is really perfect. Perfect. You're
No.
just really good for segues today, Chandler.
Hey,
So-
I'm good for something. I'm not
Oh,
going
it's
to
so
wreck
good.
myself
So-
this time.
So one reason I wanted to talk about the Kara bacteria is because I think narratively the Kara bacteria adds a really interesting dimension of what I will call cosmic horror. Of, and typically, cosmic horror is sort of like, the unknown things that you cannot fathom and knowing the truth about that, and then like how very utterly insignificant you are, and you're just gonna die and nothing cares, like right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
the vast indifference of the universe, right? And so
Yeah.
the Kara bacteria, at least narratively, I feel has this really interesting kind of cosmic horror effect. At least it did for me. I don't know. Maybe other people had this happen. But the first time I played this game, and after, the sunbeam got exploded and I realized I was infected with the stuff, and like it's this whole thing, and you start seeing infected creatures and stuff. And I happened to be at the time a little stuck. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be doing and where to go and what I needed to build next. because I hadn't found some of the bits and bobs like the laser cutter and thing to make things easy. I had no idea what to do. And I was sitting in my Seamoth going, I don't really know what to do. I don't know where to go, and I'm infected with this disease. I just feel like, and it was just this crushing sense of just, I can't do anything, and the Degassi people all died, and possibly Bart died because of the Kara. Like, he made it to the surface, but he wasn't going to survive anyway, and the precursors couldn't do anything about this, and, well, it's a big quarantine zone, and so I just turned my Seamoth in a direction and just drove. And drove and drove and drove until the big ghost leviathan spawned and started attacking my Seamoth, and I just kept going, and I died an ignoble death. And it was kind of a weird moment because, you know, it does the little "you died" little sound cue, and I was like, I think I just had a slight mental breakdown in character. Like, that I just didn't know what to do, and just, like, how it was like, how do you fight against a bacteria that's, you know, because at that point in the story you don't really know anything about it. You know that the precursors were here, they clearly had this planet on lockdown, they're shooting anything that comes and goes, you know, and it's just like, what do you do? Like, I don't know what to do. There's nothing I can do. And it was just this sense of, like, this crushing despair of, I can't fathom this thing. It's terrible. And it was just kind of this cosmic horror moment of, there's nothing I can do. It's just terrible. And I just, I'm just going to drive into the ghost leviathans and die.
That's actually kind of a fascinating response to that, because I feel like that's what the intent of radiation was in the original Fallout series.
Yeah.
Because there's no cure for radiation. You're just, you're a dead person walking. It depends.
Yep.
The only thing that you have now is you're either going to make your goal or you're going to die before you make it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of interesting that you had a similar experience in Subnautica because of this bacterium.
Yeah.
And actually, I've got to say, I had the same experience. I don't think I drove the...
You didn't drive to your death?
I don't think so. I did do that and get killed by the ghost leviathans, but I can't remember if that coincided with
the cosmic
that experience.
horror.
But I did have that moment where I was kind of like, okay, there's these incredible beings that have, like, created all these amazing structures that even the insanely advanced society that I am clearly a part of can't fathom, because it wiped it out, this huge ship, in a single shot, like, and they've been here for 1,000 years and their buildings look completely untouched.
Yep.
And I'm like, they couldn't figure this out, and I'm just one dude who is like a maintenance tech on this big ass ship.
Yep.
Apparently, we're
is stranded and
okay.
Oh yeah, and I'm like barely surviving just in general, and now I have to solve this huge problem. And yeah, I was kind of like, what the fuck chance do I have? And so I was just, I think my reaction to that was just kind of like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to make myself a pretty little habitat and live until I die.
Live until you die. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like that, and especially when you consider, like, the other survivors, like, you get the messages from, oh, here's where we're located, come find us, and you're like, okay, I'll go help you, and you get there, and they're gone, like, everybody's dead, like, the planet, everyone, like, the creatures killed them, they drowned, they got exploded by doing stupid things with flares in the fuel line.
That's fun time with flares, I'll have you know.
Yes. Oh yes, my mistake. And it's just like, and it's like, it's just like this whole, like, oh no kind of thing. And then, like, Chandler, your experience with, oops, Seamoth is destroyed, can I make it to air? And there's just no way.
Yeah.
Like,
the game
there's no way.
Really
You're going to
job.
die. And, like, just that you're down this far, and there's no way you're not gonna make it. You're done.
Yeah.
Like, the ghost leviathan defeated you. Like,
yeah, and it didn't even have
you
to
made
kill
it this
me.
far.
This game does such a good job of, I don't play a lot of horror games or anything, but honestly, most of the reason I don't is because they're kind of boring to me. It's just kind of like, oh, jump scare, move on. This game is such a light and fluffy looking game. Like, it's so beautiful and colorful and all of that. But I have never played a game that did such a good job of making you feel completely hopeless.
Yep. Yep, it's like the depths are dark and terrible, and you just feel horrible about everything.
You're in this, like, essentially a paradise, a beautiful garden, and you're like, life is meaningless.
Yeah, you just have this like existential nihilism creeping over
Yeah!
you.
Oh my
Like,
god.
what an...
That's hilarious.
This is what makes this game so great. Like,
Yeah.
how could anyone do that again? You know, like, it's just perfect. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually
That is-
a funny
that is-
worldview on that, because like even when I was like, oh well, I'm dead on because I got wrecked by this stupid leviathan in the middle of this stupid cave, I'm just gonna leave my body here to grab later. That's my motivation for it. It wasn't like, well, shit's fucked. I guess I just go die in the corner now. Like, and the really funny part is, upon like exploring the Lost River further, I was literally like maybe 30 seconds away from an air pocket.
Oh.
Yeah, because those precursor teleporter rooms, if you remember those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 30 seconds away from one of those.
Oh.
Well,
Yeah. Chalk up another useless death for Chandler.
yeah.
But-
Aww.
Also, you know, it's the it kind of goes along with like the hopelessness of life sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
well, almost doesn't cut it.
Yep.
The worst part is, if I wasn't futzing around trying to find a good spot to like have my body explode into pieces that I can
Yeah.
pick up later, I would have had enough air to get there. But I didn't know it was there because I didn't explore that section. So I was like, oh,
no.
well, lessons were learned there. As soon as I popped out of that teleporter and like looked out, I was like, oh, that's right where oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh no.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. And of course, you know, when I play games, I tend to like at least halfway like kind of role play in my mind, especially if I'm enjoying a game.
Yeah.
So that might have something to do with the way that I was relating to the game. But I just think that's really cool that they managed to just make, you know, it's so beautiful and it's so fun and it's just so interesting. But at the same time, it's just like sometimes you're just sitting there going, what's the point?
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
the only survivor. Nobody survived this. Everybody's dead. Everyone who came before me is dead. Even the people that were here way before that, they're all dead. You know, the planet is dying. There's radiation in the water, and it's just like this sort of like ecological grief at the same time of this like, you know, existential nihilism.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually interesting because if you don't know anything about the game going into playing it, you actually don't have any way of knowing that you are going to survive. And when I did it, because if you remember, when I played this game originally, the game was still in beta, and there
Yeah.
was no end game at all.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like there were like the alien structures, but they were just kind of, at that time it kind of felt like flavor. It was just like, oh, these are interesting things to look at. And so when I played it this time, originally I actually didn't know, because I kind of intentionally kept myself in the dark about it because I wanted to know, I wanted to experience the game properly. And I had no idea that there was actually a way off the planet. So when I had that existential crisis that you're talking about, for me it was kind of like, huh, is this even a good game? Like, I'm kind of feeling
Why
a
would I
little
want to play
hopeless.
a game that makes me feel so bad all the time?
Right?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm just gonna fucking die? What's the point? And I actually had to go on Google and like be like, I'm just gonna get enough information. I'm not gonna kill it for myself, but I just need to know, like, is there an end? Is there something that I'm actually working towards?
Or does this?
And I think, yeah, and I like was like Googling and I saw something about like someone was talking about how they were creating a rocket to get off the planet, and I went, okay, that's enough. That tells me there's more. Okay, I'm gonna keep playing.
That's hilarious. Okay, are you guys familiar with the book or movie adaptation of Into the Wild?
No.
Yes, read it.
So, Into the Wild is this story about this drifter who ends up like having adventures in like Nevada, and towards the end of the book he ends up in Alaska And
It's a true story, I think, isn't it?
yeah, it is a true story. But funny side notes about that I'll talk to you about later. In the story, he ends up in Alaska and he's starving to death in the middle of winter, and he grabs some berries and he ends up dying because he grabbed the wrong berries and killing himself with them.
Yeah.
If you take that same sort of hopelessness and you're gonna die sort of attitude and turned it into a game, would that have been a satisfying ending to Subnautica? Like,
It's a good question, actually.
I like this question. No, I would say that the answer is no, but it would be very interesting.
'Cause-
I would probably play the game over and over and then write essays and dissect it and have long rants.
that's hilarious because
Yeah.
I've played games that are exactly like that. Like 7 Days to Die. That's at the core of the game is not conquering this unknown, dangerous area. It's living long enough to have your story. And the same sort of thing
Yeah.
in Project Zomboid. Yes, there is a theme of biological zombies going and killing you and eating your brains. But those games are focused on your story before you die. And
Yeah.
they're compelling in and of themselves, but I don't think if you took that same sort of nothing really matters put it into Subnautica, it would be a satisfying game.
It could be. I don't think it would be satisfying, but I think it could be impactful, which is different. Because I could imagine a Subnautica where you think, oh man, this would be. Actually, part of me almost wishes they did this just because it would be very memorable. Where you have pretty much the same game and you work towards all this stuff, and maybe you even solve the virus problem, and you build your ship and you get ready to fly off, back to civilization, and then something horrible happens and you end up dying before you can leave the planet.
Oh, that would piss me off so much.
Oh, yeah, same.
Oh yeah. You would not forget the game though, would you?
No, but I don't
No.
think it
Yeah,
needs
'cause-
it, though.
No.
No, but I think it would be an interesting way if they set it up correctly. I do think it could be an interesting thing where it's like, hey, you almost made it, but you still died. That,
Yeah.
Oof.
I don't know. I think
Well-
that could be interesting.
I think it would be interesting, but the thing, I think, with the way Subnautica is built as it is despite even, like, the cosmic horror, kind of like, the dread and the everything feels bad, with elements in the story, and like surviving on this planet and stuff, depending on how immersed you are in the story, it's a very hopeful game.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like, despite the fact that everybody dies and this bacterium wiped out pretty much almost everything it touched, it's still very hopeful. Like, especially once you get to the Sea Emperor Leviathan, and when she's talking to you and you help her get her eggs to hatch and off they go, and like her parting words to you once you've like launched your rocket, and you're leaving the planet, it's all very hopeful. Like, it's not like it's like it has the sadness to it, like that all of this stuff happened and it was quite terrible, going back as far as thousands and thousands of years ago, but it's still it just ends on a optimistic note.
It does.
And I think that because the game has that running through it, that it is this sort of hopeful story, despite you're gonna die. Everybody died. You're sick and you're gonna die. I think that it's just you'd have to have a completely different tone to the game to be able to pull off a "and you died" ending. The end.
I don't know. I maybe this is just me. This could totally just be me. But like, I actually expected it when because I obviously never finished the game. When I went and watched the video where of the cutscenes going all the way to the end and all of that, I was surprised when you actually get off the planet. I was like, really? I was totally expecting to die on the planet. I don't know why.
Well, okay, so they do technically have Iron Man mode for this, if you wanted that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So there is
Iron Man.
Iron Man is the mode where you have one life to live and that's it.
Oh yeah, like hardcore mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, permadeath mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really wanted that experience, they did include it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Well, yeah. I just mean, like, as far as the storyline goes, I was expecting.
Yeah, he was
to
expecting
not
a
succeed.
sad narrative ending.
I really was. I don't know why. I thought that it was going to be a beautiful sad tale. It was going to be one of those where
you're just like smile
Yeah.
crying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was expecting something like you're going to have to sacrifice yourself for something, or you're going to solve this virus and then die, or
You're
I
gonna
don't
get
know
so
why
close to
I was,
leaving and then trip the finish
and then not be
line.
able to make it. Yeah, or you're going to get to the point where the rocket is basically built, but you need this one last ingredient, and oops, by the way, it's not here.
Oh,
Oh.
Like,
oof.
yeah, like I don't know why I expected that. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one, but that is something that I felt throughout the entire game. And
do you consider yourself
maybe-
a pessimistic person or a more optimistic person?
I
generally?
don't know, actually. I guess it depends. I'm like a
Yeah.
You are
overall picture pessimist, but small picture optimist, maybe.
you tend to be more optimistic, Tom. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's changing.
Yeah, I'm going off.
I
of
mean,
past
I wouldn't blame
experience
you.
here.
Yeah, right.
But that
Oh,
I don't know. I still think this game is very compelling, even without the
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
sad death sort of narrative.
I think it's.
I would never suggest that it's missing that. That's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfect. It's perfect how it is. I think.
Yes.
In my opinion.
We're all horribly biased about this game in very different games.
Yeah. And I'll admit my bias. I'm biased.
Because like
in favor of
we
this
all
game.
enjoyed it in a very, very different fashion, right? Like
Yeah.
I never really made this connection with the main character. Like the most I got was, oh, Mohawk. Thumbs up, cool.
Right.
That's about it. And you guys are like, well, my character had this existential crisis and just drove to the edge of the world and died. That's a very different experience, let's be honest here.
Yes.
It is.
And that's kind of what's fun about talking about this, like this level of stuff with you guys, because like we do all kind of experience the games very differently. And,
Yeah.
and that's kind of neat to see, and like different interpretations, but and like all kind of based around our experience with it and what we take away from it, which is really neat.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
We all think very differently, which is a boon in this case.
Yes.
Agreed. Yes.
Okay.
It's great.
Any other thoughts? I mean, we could do another whole podcast about this.
Oh, I
but
know we could. Oh, one question that's not philosophical. Did you guys ever find the sea treader poop?
Yes.
What?
You did find the sea treader poop. I apparently missed the sea treader poop, like, my first playthrough. I found it this time, and I was like, wait, alien poop?
Yeah.
Why can I pick up alien poop?
I never found that. What is that?
Yeah, so the sea treader leviathans, they have like the little three leggies and they kind of like walk along, like the deep sea. They poo, and you can pick up their poo. And their poo is really good to put in bioreactors.
Yeah. I had zero use
That's fantastic.
for it. Mostly because I didn't build a bioreactor ever. So
Oh, I did.
Yeah,
I was using a bioreactor. And I was just like, wait a minute, how did I not find this the last time I played?
I spent a lot of
That is so
time
funny.
with the sea treaders just because I was like, ooh, these guys make resources. I can get all the lithium I need. Excellent.
Yeah. That's pretty great.
That was a very clever way to replenish the world when it inevitably gets
Yeah.
unstocked, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, is it
Ever even possible to run out of resources in that game? That was one thing I found was very fascinating. Is it's like you think you're about to run out, and then you just find this massive, unending cache of resources, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
never mind.
It is possible. Like, I had to
Yeah.
start searching very far and very wide for any titanium resources towards the
Oh
end of
god,
the
yeah,
game.
me too.
And it was like, okay.
quartz.
See, and I guess I didn't play long enough.
Yeah, quartz and titanium. I was like, oh my gosh,
Just
where is it?
Okay, I do feel the quartz. That was like, oh my god, I need this so often. Why is this an uncommon resource? Quartz is everywhere. It's like the most common thing in the entire fucking Earth. Why is it so rare on this planet? Why can I find lithium like everywhere, but I can't find quartz?
I have diamonds for days, but I don't have
Yeah.
quartz. That seems backwards.
right.
Rubies,
I have so much
many
gold.
rubies.
I have so much gold. I am literally throwing it into the trash can. Why? Why is quartz more valuable?
Yeah.
Because you're building too many windows on your base.
I like to look out. There's a
me
lot of pretty things to
too.
see.
Me too.
Wait, you guys put windows?
Yeah.
Mine was like,
So you can look out and see the fishies.
That's a whole different
Also, if
perspective.
something-
Like, I didn't have a single
also
window.
if something was attacking the base, it was really good because you could like see it and have more terror.
Uh,
Yeah.
I can't quite get the logic of that one, but okay.
It's
What
fun.
you can see is simultaneously more and less scary. It's no longer unknown. That's less scary, but you can see it,
Yeah,
and it's big and it's scary and it's a Leviathan and it wants to kill you.
yeah. I guess I didn't really explore the base building as much as I could have because, yeah, 0 windows, 1 floor, moon pool. That's about it. Like,
Yeah,
2 floors, lots of windows, observatory hanging out over a thermal vent. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a different play experience than you did.
yeah. I was definitely going off of the survivalist build, apparently. Because, yeah. No, I didn't do windows. I actually had a sufficient
Again,
amount of
I think-
quartz.
I think part of it too for me was, again, I was playing the game under the impression that this was my home and that I would never get off of the planet, so I might as well make it pretty.
Okay.
It should be a comfortable place.
That's fair. I guess I never got out of survival mode. If I was, like, to put the survival mode, colonization mode, conquering mode sort of thing, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
never made it past survival. Like, once I got the Cyclops, I was like, okay, this is going to be my mobile base as far as I can take it. And that's good enough? Yeah, we'll go with that's good enough. Which,
I will say, as soon as I got the Cyclops, I more or less abandoned my base and started putting a ton of resources into that. I had a
Did either of you trick out your Cyclops? Because I had like a bed, I had an aquarium in it.
what?
I did in my first playthrough.
Why would you-
I was like-
it out. It was like my RV around the planet.
I was gonna say, this is my motorhome. That was what I was thinking the whole time. I'm like, this is my motorhome.
Yep.
I can go camping in this. It's great.
I literally just treated it as a mobile oxygen depot, and that's it.
Wow.
It had
But see, the bed... Did you have a bed at all, Chandler?
no, not a single one.
You missed out, because the bed is insanely useful. Because if the night is terrifying, and if you don't like the night, you can just go lay in bed, and the night goes away, just like in real life.
I'm glad that you explained that to me, Tom. I didn't get the concept of sleeping.
But like, after I discovered that you could sleep through the night, I was like, oh, thank God. I hate the night. It is so much worse because you can't see anything.
So,
But everything glows so pretty.
yeah, like,
Okay, it's very, very pretty when you're in a safe place. If you're not in a safe place, no.
so when
Pretty death is still death.
night came around, initially, I was like, I can't see anything. And then I found a flashlight, and I was good for most of the rest of the playthrough. But, like,
I will say, yeah, as soon as I had a way of recharging power cells, night was not so bad. But when I was burning through batteries all the damn time, I was like, yeah, no, this is costing a fortune. And it took so much time and effort to get all the resources to build batteries because you're just burning through them so fast. But
Right.
it took me forever to find the battery charger parts. I don't know why, but that was something that happened very late in the game for me.
that's funny. Like, I found battery chargers about mid-game, and then I started picking up all the batteries that I just dumped on the ground.
Oh yeah, well, and I didn't. I explored the Aurora super late in the game, and as soon as I started exploring it, there's just batteries everywhere, and I was like, oh my god. I've made so many batteries, and all this time I could have just hung out over here for a little bit, and I could have had all the batteries I ever wanted.
That's so funny. That is so funny.
Yeah. I think by the time I finished playing the game, I had a stockpile of batteries in the base, the Cyclops, and my auxiliary base next to the gun, the big, huge, like, space gun.
That's so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
I honestly only made like 6 batteries the entire game.
Wow.
And I maybe used all of them once.
I think I had 6 batteries at each base and recharged all of them regularly.
That's so funny.
So,
like,
how did you play the game?
okay, so you're talking about RV camping. Apparently, I was doing ultralight backpacking across America.
Apparently.
Like, we had
did you
both
use
camping
the-
experiences, but very different camping experiences.
Yeah. Did you use the little, like, powered scooter thing?
All the damn time. And I had one battery that I
blows
swapped
through
out
batteries.
in that thing regularly, and that was about it.
That was my primary battery consumer. Like, I can't even tell you how much or how many batteries I put into that stupid thing.
That's fair. Yeah, that thing was very power hungry.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't end up making that many batteries and or needing them after the sea moth got down to 900 meters. I was like, oh, okay. This is my primary source. I can swim with these super fast flippy floppies. Be good.
Yeah.
It's not optimal, but I can work with it. Yeah.
It never ceases to fascinate me how different our playstyles are.
Right?
Right?
Yeah. Anyway, you guys have any other
Yeah.
thoughts about Subnautica we wanted to touch on?
That's a good game. Go play it.
Yeah, good game. Go play.
Strong recommend. Whether you're ultralight backpacking or lounging around in your RV yacht.
Yeah,
Yacht is actually much cool. I had a freaking aquarium. Yeah, it's more of a
Yeah,
yacht.
it's more of like a yacht.
Yeah, but why did you put an aquarium in your submarine? That seems... Anyway.
It's fun.
There's a real practical reason. You can put peepers in it, and then if you go to an area where there's not very much food, you can eat those peepers. I know, I'm eating my pets. It sounds really terrible, but it's useful.
Oh my
But
God.
peepers.
Oh my God.
Delicious
Peepers
and
are delicious.
nutritious.
Yeah.
Oh,
Especially the eyes. The eyes are good eating.
Yep, very nutritious eyes.
that's hilarious. Okay. How about you, Devin? Any other thoughts?
No, I think we covered everything that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
I mean, we could keep going for hours and hours, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I think- okay.
If you haven't, if you've listened to us this long rant about Subnautica and you don't get our strong recommendations, we have very strong recommendations to go play this game.
we do.
Agreed.
Oh, okay. Well, why
Well-
don't we call it here, and then we'll move on to another topic next time.
Okay.
Indeed. The game that I've already played and beaten and I'm ready to talk about.
Oh, huzzah!
Yes.
Okay. Well, we have been the Adventure Mechanics. I'm Chandler,
I'm Devin.
And I'm Tom.
and we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Peace.